Hello, everyone. Welcome. You're listening to a brand new episode of The Millennial Athlete with Tanvi and Shlok, a podcast of, for, and by the millennials. I'm your host, Shlok Ramchandran.
And I'm your co host, Tanvi Lad. What's up, Shlok? What's behind this bespectacled look of yours? I mean, I can't believe that you're a 26-year-old anymore.
Tanvi, I think you should call me Coach. Coach Shlok. I
Okay.
think I think without the glasses, I look like a kid. So my students actually take me a little more seriously when I have glasses. They don't actually have power, so it's like the blue light glasses, but it
Such a
adds
scam.
a
Such a
little more
scam.
personality to
Oh
me.
my God.
I'm a scammer, but I mean, yeah. Jokes apart, we are in between of a lockdown, and India is currently, experiencing a very deadly second wave of the novel COVID-19 virus. So, from the millennial athlete, all we would like to say is that let's fight this together. We can come out of this together. If you please stay at home if you can. Do not venture out of your houses still. It is extremely important, and even if you do, please wear your mask and maintain your social distancing. If we do this, I'm sure we will be back on track.
Absolutely, Shlok. I think it's back to square one. I mean, we're almost in May, and it just takes me back to where we were last year. I mean, I was really looking forward to a good couple of months of competing. May, June seemed to, the circuit seemed to be picking up, and, I've trained for a while, and here we are again, this deadly second wave, and with the unprecedented rise in cases, I think Indians are not really able to travel to Europe or anywhere for that matter. So tournaments have started and sport has resumed, but we're just unable to compete. So I think. It's kind of back to square one, sitting at home in lockdown, time to reflect and revisit some of the goals that we had set as athletes. And I happened to actually put on a documentary today. I was watching the Carolina Marin documentary, and it just seemed uh, I mean, the coach student relationship was something that really caught my attention, and I thought, why not chat about that today.
I mean, perfect. I think this is the perfect topic where we can take our minds off for a bit, and talk about. We've spoken about a relationship between a mentor and a mentee, but this is a slightly different relationship. I mean, it is close to one, but it's got different. I mean, coaches come with different variation. We've had different coaches over the years, and all of them have their own sets of ideas. You've trained with some of the best, and you've trained with somebody like a Tom John, who would always be pushing. Not the most skillful, never the most talented player in his time, but I think he's one of the best coaches India has produced, and he would be extremely tough. I was just reading about two types of coaches: the autocratic coaches and the democratic coaches. The democratic coaches tend to let players make their own decisions and try to make themselves reliable, but the autocratic coaches actually are constantly on the ball making decisions. So where do you think your coaches have been on the scale of autocratic and democratic?
Well, I think, like you said, a coach, it's a very complicated or a complex kind of role that he has to play. I mean, beyond when we're a player, we're just, focused on ourselves and being a better version of ourselves every day. But when you're a coach, you very often have to leave your ego at home and you're there to serve the player. So, a coach has to yes, he has to be technically on point, he has to be motivating and inspiring, and to that extent, someone like a Tom John, who used to really push you every day. He used to on games day be sitting at the back of the court and sometimes pulling you down, but he was always, you knew he had your good at heart, and he had his own eccentric way of doing it, but really challenged you in training, pushed your mind and body to the hilt in every practice session, and you know managed to bring out the best in you. But that was his his approach. But you had someone like a Pulela Gopichand. You had the opportunity of training under him for a bit as well, the national coach. And I think one of the things that really struck me about him was that he spoke very little, as opposed to someone like Tom John, who was so animated. Gopi sir was, almost like a Zen master on court. He would speak very little and let his, his actions and his work ethic do all the talking. And he was also a very good listener. I mean, you would go to him with a problem. He would, actually allow you to speak your heart out for almost 20-25 minutes, despite being a very busy man, and would give you a few lines of, what I would call pearls of wisdom. But there were times when we came out of his cabin utterly confused with what he had said, because they were like profound statements. But when you actually thought about them, from a macro perspective, they made a lot of sense. And I think that was something I would really give him a lot of credit for, being a really good listener and putting things into perspective. Sometimes the coach just has to play that mentor role, which is quite important.
Again, so like two sides of the spectrum, right? Here you've got Tom John, not a former champion in his own right when he played, and on the other end we've got somebody like Pulela Gopichand, former All England champion. But that doesn't make Tom John a lesser coach, doesn't it? I mean,
Yeah,
we
yeah.
always get this question from, especially from the new age students, कि coach ने क्या किया है? I mean, you coach ने क्या level पे खेला है? But it is actually not related. Okay, there is some relation that you must have played badminton, but it doesn't have to be 100% sure that if you've been a great player, you will become a great coach. Right? I don't think there is any link to that. Tom John was a great coach, even though he didn't play a lot of high class badminton. Puella Gopichand is a great coach, even though he's played high class badminton. And I say that because I think to be a good coach, you need to be a student of the game. Sometimes that's why you see the most talented players don't really end up becoming good coaches, because they've never had to like become students of the game and go in like really tactically. Like I would be surprised if somebody like Kevin Sanjaya Sukomolio would become a great coach. But on the other hand, I think somebody like Gideon Fernaldi can become a good coach because he had so many limitations on the game and he still ended up being world number one. Uh, so Tanvi, I'm going to ask you this question: that is it important or is it mandatory for a coach in today's age to be a former pro player and has played at that international level?
Shlok, throwback to the episode we did with Abhishek Nair and Dinesh Karthik. Abhishek Nair was emphatic in stating that, I had nothing going for me as a player. I had to work on every aspect of my fitness, of my technique, and I learned so much in that process that I feel I have so much to give now to youngsters, and which is what in his opinion, makes him a good coach. So yes, it does make a huge difference, because if you have played, like, say, a Pulela Gopichand has, or a Vimal Kumar, they've played at the highest level of international badminton. They've played at the world, at the world level. They know what it takes, mindset wise, physically, tactically, to actually be playing a semi-final at an All England, which is, when you've been there, done that, it's a different kind of experience to guide someone who's now doing that all over again, 10 years later. So from an experience perspective, no doubt it makes a difference to have someone who's been an ex-player, or been a pro. But when it comes down to actually breaking down a problem, say a footwork issue or a technique issue, sometimes the most talented guys just do it right. I mean, they don't think, or they don't know why they're doing it right, unless they're questioned about it. That's what makes a Roger Federer, or a Roger Federer. He has a flair for the sport, and actually putting thought behind why he does what he does so well may actually mess it up. So a talented player may not always know why he's doing something so well. So to become a good coach, you need to be able to break down a complex situation, literally down to its building blocks. And that may not be possible for everyone, so someone who's been a student of the game, like you said, um, definitely would be able to solve a problem, for a youngster, and actually work backwards to get him to doing something complex. But in my opinion, I think you've made the successful transition. You decided to become a coach pretty early on. um, how are you dealing with the transition?
It's been tough. Uh, it has come naturally to me to a certain extent, because the fact that I wasn't the most talented player when I played on court. I know that I had my limitations, but I would try to use all of my resources and try to put it. When I come on court, when I came on court, actually, uh, it is tough because not every player has the best motor skills to start off with the hand-eye coordination. So what I've learned is that when you are actually teaching the younger kids, the 6 7 year olds, is that you need to have a lot of patience, right? And in the current age, you can't just scare them off. I remember when we were kids, we would be so scared of our first coaches, that we could, like, I could never talk in front of my first coach. I would be like this. But with so much internet these days, and the kids being so far advanced to what we were, I don't think I was as advanced as this when I was 7 or 8. I was so dumb. But today, when I go and talk to my kids at the academy, and I ask them, what do you want to be, and they give answers like, I want to become an astrophysicist, I want to become a YouTube gamer, I want to become a dancer, I want to. One actually said that I want to become and manage events. I'm like, I mean, did I even know what I want to do when I was 8? And then I asked, like, does anybody want to become a badminton player? And then there were two kids saying that, yes, sir, we want that Indian jersey. So it felt good. But again, the transition hasn't been easy. Obviously, I moved into the coaching very young. I'm just 26 now. I tried to take styles of coaching patterns I have taken from a lot of coaches. I've trained under the best coaches. I think I started off my career with Uday Pawar, then I went with at the Prakash Padukone, where I had Vimal Kumar, Vinod Kumar, Prakash sir himself. Then I went to the National Center, where I had Pulela Gopichand, I had Jonathan Dasuki, I had Edwin Irivan, I had Kim Tanher, I had Vijay Deep Singh. So I had, there was a brief moment I trained with Pradnya Gadre. I try to take everything and not copy their styles and make a style of my own, because I feel that I will have to make a unique style of my own. So I'm still trying to find my style, and try to find the perfect gap between being strict on them, but on the same side, I don't want them to be scared of me, and I want them to come and talk to me about what they feel on court. It's a fine line right now. I'm still trying to figure it out, but that is the path I want to be at the moment.
That's really interesting, Stroke, because I feel, just like a player keeps trying to be a better version of himself every day in every training session, a coach, and the hallmark of a good coach is that he never stops learning and never, he's always a student of the game. He never really considers himself larger than the game, and that's another very very trademark quality about Gopichand himself, because he's always learning, he's always reading, he's always researching, and no matter, he may have produced some of the best, the stalwarts in Indian badminton, he is never afraid to be a student of the game. He's always learning because there is so much to learn. And throwback to the documentary I was watching about Marin, Fernando Rivas has actually gone on record to say that Saina Nehwal actually made him a better coach in his quest to decode the Saina Nehwal, puzzle. He learned so much about the game. He researched so much. He watched so many videos, collected so much data, because according to him, Saina was a tough nut to crack, not only physically but also mentally and stroke wise. She was right up there at her peak. So, in his quest to get Marin to beat Saina, he actually became a better coach and learned a lot as a coach. So I think you've definitely made the transition early on, and you have years ahead to kind of decide what your preferred style of coaching is going to be. But my advice to you would be, stay hungry, stay foolish, and keep learning.
Yeah, yeah, that's what we did as players, and I think the learning never stops. You did a couple of sessions with me when we were back in Mumbai, so it's always good to be on the other side, because I feel when you're a player, you tend to get blindsided on certain issues, but when a third party comes in and you get extra two sets of eyes, I think that just helps a player to grow. But also one of we talk about these great coaches, like we talk about Pep Guardiola, we talk about Jurgen Klopp, we talk about Pulela Gopichand, we talk about Kenneth Johansson on a throwback on our episode with Hans Christian Vichingus. All of these have like one common area where they all excel. I think that's man management skills. I think that is, if you are training a big group of players, I think that is what separates a good coach and a great coach, in my opinion. Is the man management skills, understanding that every player is different, and you everybody cannot have a generic schedule all the time. What are your views on man management skills as a coach? And obviously, you've trained with some of the best coaches, and have they had that?
Absolutely. So, for starters, I think someone like a Tom John, like you mentioned, though he had never really played the game, for India or for England, his ability to manage a group was something we all, would look up to him for, because you would have kids, you would have an intermediate batch, and you would have some senior players training together. And we would be rotated across courts doing exactly what we had to do. Each player was working on what he had to work. So it takes a certain ability to actually manage a group, keep everyone mentally engaged without feeling like he's been sent to the last court and being made to feed someone, which is a very debilitating feeling for a player. I've come for a session and I'm wasting my time giving somebody else practice. What about my practice? So for a coach to actually sense that, to give each player importance no matter what level he is at, because after all he's investing his time and effort in that session. So in my opinion, I think it is very, very critical for every coach to you really apply his mind to curate a session as per the needs and requirements of each player at the time. Um, and uh, it it definitely takes a lot of exactly as you put it, man management skills, the ability to manage a group, keep the group motivated, critique them if they're not doing something right, be their biggest fan in terms of motivating them from time to time, and also their biggest critic. But talking of being a critic, it's each player responds to criticism very, very differently. We would have our dear friend Ajay Jairam, sometimes hit back at the coach, saying that. But, I mean, it was a different rapport that we shared with Tom, where we could actually talk back to him, and he would take it in that spirit. But
He wanted that, right? He wanted like to come out the anger, like
masala.
like from inside, saying that you should feel hurt sometimes and not be
Yeah,
passive all
yeah.
the time. That was his style of coaching. Yeah,
Yeah,
continue.
yeah, yeah. But you actually have some players who can't take it. I mean, they especially girls tend to be a little more sensitive, so you tend to go into a little bit of a shell. Oh, sir said that. Oh, sir said this. They're a little sensitive. So it's very important to understand each player's psyche and know how to actually deal with them, when to give them feedback, when to critique them. So it's a tough job. I think a coach's job is quite tough sometimes.
Oh yes, tell me about it. On that note, I think we should take our first break. Stay tuned, guys. You're listening to the Millennial Athlete with Tanvi and Shlok. We'll be right back.
Welcome back, guys. You're listening to The Millennial Athlete with Tanvi and Shlok, and we're still chatting about, the coach athlete, student coach kind of relationship that exists. And I think it's very important as of today. So Shlok, one thing that I've realized, as a coach, it's very important to lead by example. We've all noticed Matthias Bo, since he's taken over as national coach of the men's doubles and the women's doubles squad at the national center. He's not only been very very professionally setting schedules for every session the night before. We've heard some great reviews about how professionally he's been managing the squad. But I think what's really standing out is a his work ethic and the kind of quality he's bringing to the session. So when he's on court and feeding, everyone knows that he means business. And secondly, I think he's leading by example in terms of keeping himself really fit. We noticed that he spends 2.5 hours on the bike every day.
I think that's very important. I think the new age style of coaching. Ideally, you shouldn't have a paunch and like you lead by example. Right? You need. I mean, the coaches don't need to have six pack abs and like be ripped, but they need to at least look a little fit. I mean, when you played at the national center, that whenever Gopi sir would come on court, it would be a different intensity, right? Same with me when Kim Tanher was on the court, it is a different kind of intensity. Obviously, they've played at that highest level, so that skill level is also there. But it like when we play against each other as players, and then when suddenly a coach comes in, it's a different ball game altogether. You know that for sure. So I think it's very important. Throwback to I think 2012 Olympics when Saina was Gopi sir asked Saina to go on a diet, and he actually went on the same diet with Saina.
Yeah, yeah.
That is the kind of commitment he made, and that showed. Saina eventually won the bronze medal, and he's done the same with Sindhu as well. I have seen him at 42 43 play a full best of 3 against Sindhu. Imagine, like, Gopi sir retired when he was 28. Yeah,
Yeah,
and now
yeah,
I think he was in his 40s, and he would play a full best of 3 match.
yeah,
that,
yeah.
that is tough. You can It's very difficult to play that. And also very similar, I mean, even Kim Tan-her, because we would play doubles, he would play a lot of 3 versus 2 games just
Hmm.
to
Hmm.
increase the pace, and he was there, and we spent Chirag, Satvik, Arjun and myself spent the most of our times playing a lot of 3 versus 2 against him. So when you see a coach being actively involved,
Yeah.
it psychologically helps the player also really raise the game. I mean, obviously, once they come to a higher level, when you've got a good crop of players, like, I don't think Gopi needs to come on court now with the men's singles match,
Hmm.
because he's got 8 of the best, right? He
Hmm.
doesn't need to, because the quality is so high and he can supervise.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
So I think he when you reach that level, only then you can come off the court.
yeah.
But till that, I think you should be there. But he still takes all the multi sessions. It is not like the Danish system where the players are giving each other multi shuttle. I think that should also happen. But in India, you use a lot of coaches, and some of the multi shuttle drills which Vimal sir used to make us do at the Prakash Padukone Academy, they were so tough. And yeah, I do the same with my kids now, and make sure, like, when they're off the multi program, they are drenched in sweat and can't even wake up for the next 10 minutes. But yeah, all for trusting the process. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, at the throwback to the National Center, I think there were times when, we had a 4:30 a.m. session almost every day, the girls' batch, and there were times when you were tired and sore, and we just didn't want to wake up at 3:45 a.m. every day of our lives. But then when you would see Gopi sir walk into his cabin at 3:50, you're like, what? If a coach can do this at his age, it is my career. I jolly well put on my shoes and go down for the session. So just leading by example, seeing that coach live that life with you, it's a different kind of psychological switch. You're just ready to put in the effort, you're willing to up the intensity. And yeah, I mean, having a coach follow the same diet as you, or it just makes the sacrifice not seem like a sacrifice anymore.
True. I mean, also sometimes the off-court gestures also matter. I remember our assistant coach at the national center, somebody who always backed me, Vijaydeep Singh. Uh, there would be times when we would actually feel low, and he would know about it. So he would, take us out for dinner, and he would, like, not talk about badminton, but just talk about, how are you feeling? Are you feeling okay? And that somehow felt like, okay, this coach has my back. He's there to support me. I think sometimes it is important for the student to know that, hey, my coach has my back irrespective. He's like my second set of parent. He's going to be there no matter what. I felt that obviously with Vijaydeep Singh, when I would have a tough day in the office. I remember when I played the Thomas Cup, and because Chirag and Satvik got injured, we were bumped to be the number one pair, and we were playing France, and we lost to Julian Mayo and his partner, Bastian Cassordi. And it's a match we should have won, because we were all number 33. We just came off a quarterfinal showing at the Australia GP, and we were doing really well. The situation got the better of us, and because the fact that we were the number one pair, we just took too much pressure, and I just froze on court. Arjun was actually better, and we lost 21-14, 21-13, and that ended up costing us the tie, and we didn't go through the knockouts. And I remember, being extremely low. And we were supposed to play two more matches. We were playing China and Australia next, but that was a very important match. And I remember when I was right, I wasn't talking to anybody. I was right at the end in the practice hall. I know he came to me, and he said that it's okay. I know it was a tough day in the office. I know you feel that you've let the country down. It's okay. You learn from this, but I want you to just think about it for a while, and then start preparing for tomorrow, because tomorrow we are playing China, and it's going to be a tough match, and then we are going to play Australia, and we are still going to fight to get out of this spot, even though we are playing China. And that just gave Arjun and me so much reassurance that he didn't come and he didn't bash us, saying that, oh, you didn't do this, you didn't do that, what are you doing? So our confidence, if you would have done that, would have gone from here to here. But he knew that this isn't the right time to do that. Obviously he bashed us when the Thomas Cup got over. He, like, really gave us a lecture. That's a different thing.
Mm.
But he knew that wasn't the right time. He chose the right time to do it. And we played one of our good matches against the world champions, Zhang Nan and Liu Sheng, and we beat the number one Australian pair, who were also a top 50 pair then. And and then we got, obviously we were bashed on Twitter, but then we got better reviews on Twitter saying that, these kids worked hard. So that is one fond memory I have with Vijaydeep sir. And I don't know if he's listening this, but if you are, Paji, thank you so much. You've been, I always wish you on Guru Purnima no matter what, but you've been one of my fondest coaches. And I hope we meet again soon, and talk about our times when you were coaching us. So yeah, thank you, Nita Paji. You're the best.
Yeah, I mean, I think Shlok, that was a very very inspiring anecdote because like you mentioned, you know, we spoke to Shri Advani on the previous episode, and the psychological side of sport, and the mental space that an athlete very often is in affects his game. You may be the most talented, you may be the fittest, you may have trained, the hardest, but if you're not in the correct state of mind on the day, you're probably not going to play at your best. And uh, athletes are affected by things that go on in their personal lives, or for instance, the pandemic that we're going through now. Every athlete is definitely affected mentally, motivation levels, or just anxiety issues. Deep down you don't know what's going on in the athlete's mind, what is troubling him. Is it a personal issue, is it a financial issue? It's very important for a coach to be sensitive to the humane aspect of an athlete. He isn't a robo. At the end of the day, he is also a human being. So it's very very important for for a coach to be in tune with what the athlete is doing off court. I mean, I remember Gopi sir and even Fernando Rivas, if I'm not mistaken, mentioning that I want to know how many times Marin or Saina is even going to the bathroom in a day. That is the kind of involvement I want when I'm preparing her for the Olympics. It's just not on court. It's I need to know, what she's eating or who she's talking to or what she's how much time she's spending on her phone, and that plays a critical role in performance. So it definitely is a hallmark of a great coach is really truly understanding his athlete, being in sync with his feelings and emotions and state of mind from time to time. And yeah, I mean, I hope you are forming that bond with your kids early on.
Sometimes it's you have to be the devil's advocate sometimes for the long term picture or long term goal. I'm sure Marine or Sindhu won't mind that now that they got the results saying that they hated their coach for that moment where they took away the phone, and not didn't let their students go out at night to stuff, which is tough for a student to know then. But when you get the result, you look at, hey, if the coach wouldn't had done this, I wouldn't had probably reached where I am today. So it's important sometimes for the coach to be the devil's advocate as well. So yeah, I understand. I'm trying to do that with my students. Hopefully you see some of my students taking over the world sometime soon. I'll be super happy. I'll be even more prouder than my achievements if my students end up going up doing well at any level of tournament, starting with district and then hopefully international, because that is the ultimate goal of a coach.
Perfect. So I think one last thought that I wanted to put out there before we wrap up is that coaching, as you can all see, is a tough job. It isn't just a seamless transition that you've been a pro player and I've decided to hang up my boots and start coaching. There is a lot that goes on behind the scenes, and I think if we are really to make the most of the talent that we have in our country, we definitely need a good lineup of coaches. I mean, we've seen great examples in the list that we just mentioned a while ago. But if we want to produce champions, churn out champions from time to time of the level of a PV Sindhu, a Saina Nehwal, a Parupalli Kashyap, we definitely need our ex players to get back into the system and find an incentive in taking up coaching as a profession. um, you know uh, Coaching can't be treated as something that is a last resort, that I've spent my life as a player and I probably haven't pursued a very high educational qualification, and now I'm into coaching because I need to earn my bread and butter. It's no longer remained at that stage. It's become very professional. Coaches are responsible for people's careers, which mean a lot more right now. So I think getting ex players into the system, making coaching a lucrative profession for ex athletes to even take up, is the need of the hour, because that's the only way we're going to actually start producing more and more champions.
Satyavachan, Dhanvi, Satyavachan. What time ho gaya? I didn't say this, so I wanted to put this out there. Also, like a final thought saying that a coach probably spends more time with the kids than their own parents do. So you know how important then a coach's job becomes. So where every time to all those parents, every time you meet a coach, just make sure that you are giving him or her the respect she or he deserves, even though he's not played at the highest level, because as they say in the Indian mythology, that a guru is always placed at the highest in the pyramid of the society. So please, and all those parents who expect quick results, don't. It's please trust your coach, give them that respect, and I'm sure that your kid will eventually fulfill his potential as an athlete. So yeah. क्या बात है, इतना इतना ज्ञान श्लोक, क्या बात है, बड़ा हो गया, लड़का बड़ा हो गया.
spectacles निकालो. I think बहुत ज़्यादा level थोड़ा बढ़ रहा है.
Zada, I've seen a
ज़्यादा
lot of
हो रहा है.
motivational and coaching videos. Yeah. But I mean, again, from we want to stress this out again, that we know everybody is going through a tough time, but hang in there, people. We know that it's tough, and I mean, us, we don't, we are not experiencing the same thing you are. Maybe you are experiencing it at a much more tougher level. But please hang in there. Only get out of your house if it is, at the urgent requirement. Please wear a mask. Otherwise, stay at home. Listen to our podcast so that we also and that's the best time you could pass time. And from the whole team of the Millennial Athlete and IVM podcast, we pray that things will get back to the new normal soon.
All right.
On that note, if you like this podcast, don't forget to check out other interesting podcasts on the IVM network. You can listen to all of them on the IVM podcast app or ivmpodcast.com. You can also follow IVM on their social media handle, that is at the rate IVM podcast on Twitter and Instagram. If you want us to talk about anything, please reach out to me. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram with the handle at the rate SHLOKH95.
And you can write to me on at tanvilad93 on Instagram and Twitter.
Until then, ciao. We shall be back next week with another fresh episode of The Millennial Athlete with Tanvi and Shlok. Stay safe, guys. Take care.